begin with prayer.
Lasst uns mit Gebet anfangen.
Father in heaven,
Vater im Himmel,
thank you for the Word of God,
danke für das Wort Gottes,
for the Bible, holy message shining.
für die Bibel, das heilige Botschaft, der leuchtet.
And we ask you to please now give us your Spirit according to your promise.
Und wir bitten jetzt, dass du uns deinen Geist gibst, gemäß deiner Verheißung.
Where Jesus said, I will ask the Father to send you another comforter.
Weil Jesus hat gesagt, ich werde den Vater bitten, euch einen anderen Tröster zu senden.
And he will teach you all things and he will guide you into all truth and remind us of everything that he told us.
Und er wird uns alle Wahrheit lehren und uns in alle Wahrheit führen und uns daran erinnern, was du uns gelehrt hast.
So please forgive us our sins.
So bitte vergib uns unsere Sünden.
Please explain to us the book of Daniel,
Bitte erkläre uns das Buch Daniel,
especially Daniel 11.
besonders Daniel 11.
Please grant us this revelation
Und bitte gewähre uns diese Offenbarung.
and please let us see your glory.
Und bitte lasst uns deine Herrlichkeit sehen.
And we ask and pray in Jesus' name.
Und wir bitten und beten in Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so this evening we want to look a little bit at Daniel 11.
So, heute Abend wollen wir Daniel 11 etwa anschauen.
And before we do this,
Und noch bevor wir das tun,
we will just make a short recap of what we looked at this morning in the morning class.
wir werden eine kleine Zusammenfassung oder Wiederholung dessen, was wir heute Morgen in der Klasse angeschaut haben.
Because this morning we looked at Daniel chapter 8, right?
Denn heute Morgen haben wir Daniel Kapitel 8
So
angeschaut.
let's go there.
So lasst uns dahin.
In 8, let us read the first 8 verses.
Daniel Kapitel 8 und wir lesen die ersten 8 Versen.
And we can read, actually we can read the first 9 verses.
Sogar der ersten 9 Versen.
And we can read three verses each.
Und wir werden jeweils 3 Versen lesen.
And Brahma, you want to read the first 3 please?
In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw, that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last.
I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power.
And I saw him come closer to the ram, and was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stand upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven.
Yes. Okay. So, so who can explain to me these verses quickly?
So wer kann mich schnell diesen Versen erklären?
So this morning we looked at this, right? That he sees the same vision as chapter 7, right?
So heute Morgen haben wir gesehen, dass hier in Daniel 8, er sieht denselben Vision wie in Daniel 7.
And we already looked at Daniel 7 represents these four beasts here.
Daniel 7, haben wir bereits angeschaut, stellt diese 4 Tieren dar.
Beginning with the son-in-law, the leopard brings us to midnight,
Also beginnt mit dem Sonntagsgesetz, der Leopard führt uns zur Mitternacht.
and then comes up this fourth beast, which is paying Rome in a time of peace.
Und dann kommt diese 4. Tier herauf, was heidnisches Rom ist in einer Zeit des Friedens.
And then here it becomes this persecuting power,
Und
right?
hier wird es diese verfolgende Macht,
When the woman is sitting on the dragon again.
wenn die Frau auf der Drache wieder sitzt.
Okay, so here in Daniel 8,
Und hier in Daniel 8,
so Daniel sees this two-horned beast,
Daniel, der sieht diese 2-hörnige Tier.
and in what condition is this two-horned beast?
Und in welchem Zustand befindet sich diese 2-hörnige Tier?
One is higher than the other. Or
Yes, one horn is higher than the other, right?
Eine Horn ist höher als das
So
andere.
therefore, where do we mark this on the line?
Und wo markieren wir das auf der Linie?
The son-in-law, right?
Am Sonntagsgesetz.
So what are these two horns again?
Und was sind diese 2 Hörner?
Republikanismus.
Yes, republicanism and Protestantism. Yes?
Republikanismus und Protestantismus.
Okay. And this morning we also looked at this point that you have these two opposing powers within the United States, but also basically worldwide.
Und heute Morgen haben wir angeschaut, dass es gibt diese 2 entgegengesetzten Kräften innerhalb der USA, aber auch weltweit.
Which is the North, Republicanism, and the South, the Democrats.
Was den Norden Republikanismus ist und den Süden den Demokraten.
And in every country you have basically the conservative class and the socialist class, right?
Und in jeder Land der Welt im Grunde gibt es der Konservativen und diese sozialistische Gruppe.
So you always have these two groups and they always are opposed to each other.
So, es gibt immer diese 2 Gruppen und die sind einander immer entgegengesetzt.
And we saw the North is fascism and the South is communism.
Wir haben gesehen, des Norden ist es Faschismus und den Süden Kommunismus.
And what is again the difference between those two?
Und was ist der Unterschied zwischen den beiden?
Apart
Yes.
from one hides itself under religious
Also
guilt.
im Grunde
Yes.
gibt es keinen Unterschied, außer dass der eine versteckt sich hinter einer religiösen Vorwand.
So that's with religion, that's without
Also
religion. Right?
mit Religion und ohne Religion.
So they oppose religion. Okay.
Also die widerstehen Religiöses.
And they are this open rebellion and they are this hidden rebellion.
So offene Rebellion und versteckte Rebellion.
Okay, and we saw basically here the son-in-law who is therefore ruling here
Und wir haben gesehen hier am Sonntaggesetz, wer regiert hier
of those two powers.
von diesen beiden?
Republican horn.
Yes, republicanism.
Der
Right?
Republikanismus.
So because they now put this religious garb on, they say now we make a son-in-law.
Weil sie tun diese religiöses Gewand auf sich und sagen, wir machen hier ein Sonntagsgesetz.
Okay, so and then basically that is what is described here in verse 3 and 4.
Und das ist, was hier in die Versen 3 und 4 beschrieben wird.
Because now one horn is higher, the Republican horn is now, the Protestant horn is now higher than the Republican horn.
Weil jetzt hier der protestantische Horn ist höher als der republikanische Horn.
And then in verse 4, this is now when they become great.
Und
Right?
in Vers 4, da werden sie groß.
Okay, and they know, what do they do?
Und was tun sie jetzt?
Go against three geographical areas.
Yes.
Also die stoßen gegen 3 geografische Gegenden.
So what time is it? What kind of a time?
So was für eine Zeit ist das?
Trouble.
It's a time of war,
Das
right?
ist eine Zeit des Krieges.
So it's a time of trouble. Okay.
Eine
So
Zeit des Trübsals.
this begins here at the son-in-law is now this time of trouble.
Beginnt hier am Sonntagsgesetz diese Zeit des Trübsals.
Okay, but we understand there's also then a time of peace. Okay.
Aber wir verstehen, dass es auch dann eine Zeit des Friedens gibt.
Okay, and this is what we looked at here in Daniel 8 verse 5.
Und das ist das, was wir hier in Daniel 8, Vers 5 angeschaut haben.
Because let us read verse 5 and 6 again.
So, die Verse 5 und 6 ein weiteres Mal.
And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the he-goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So there's now this war going on between these two powers.
So, es gibt diesen Krieg hier in Vers 6 zwischen diesen zwei Mächten.
In verse 7 it says,
Vers 7 sagt es.
And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. So how many could deliver the ram?
So, wie viele konnten den Widder befreien?
God's will.
Yes, nobody, right?
Niemand.
Okay, and we give you a finger here, we saw it's like a parallel to Daniel 11,
Und haltet den Platz hier. Wir haben gesehen, dass es wie eine Parallel zu Daniel 11 ist.
verse 45.
Vers 45.
Though it's a different place on the line, but it's the same principle.
So,
Okay.
obwohl es anders auf der Linie markiert wird, ist es derselbe Prinzip.
In verse 45 it says,
Vers 45 sagt es.
and he, who's the he in verse 45?
Wer ist das Er hier in Vers 45?
Yes, the papacy,
Der
right?
Papst.
So the papacy with the republican horn.
Der Papsttum mit der republikanisches Horn zusammen.
So, and he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So when the king of the north comes to its end, how many can help him?
So, wenn der König des Nordens zu Ende kommt, wie viel kann ihm helfen?
Nobody, right?
Niemand.
Because we went to Revelation 17 and we saw basically that it's God's will that is fulfilled.
Wir sind zur Offenbarung 17 gegangen und haben gesehen, dass es im Grunde Gottes Wille ist.
Which is fulfilled, and therefore this punishment nobody can stay.
Dass es erfüllt wird und deswegen niemand kann diese Bestrafung aufhalten.
Let's read verse 16 to 17.
Die Verse 16 und 17.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Okay, so and that, but this is here in Revelation 17. It's at the end of the Sunday law, right?
Aber hier in Offenbarung 17, das ist am Ende des Sonntagsgesetzes.
And it's also in Daniel 11 verse 45. It's at the end of this Sunday law.
Und
Right?
Daniel 11,45 ist auch am Ende des
But
Sonntagsgesetzes.
it just shows us when the punishment comes, nobody can stay it and nobody can help against it.
Aber es zeigt uns das Prinzip, dass wenn die Strafe kommt, niemand kann es aufhören, niemand kann es verändern.
So, and who is the 10 kings here at the end that inflict the punishment on the papacy?
Und wer sind die 10 Könige hier am Ende, die die Bestrafung auf der Papsttum bringen? No way.
The what? The devil?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Das ist die Demokraten.
Okay. It's the Democrats.
That's
Okay.
what I was sad. No way.
Okay. It's the Democrats, right?
So, die Demokraten.
So it's the south coming against the north.
Die
Okay.
Süden, die gegen das Norden kommen.
All right. So and right here, okay, which this is here, right?
Also diese finale Untersuchung am Ende hier ist hier auf die obrigen Linien.
Okay. And we already looked that basically you have the lion, the bear, and the leopard, which is Greece, that brings you to here.
Und
Right?
wir haben bereits gesehen, der Löwe, der Bär und der Leopard, was Griechenland ist, der dich bis hierhin bringt.
So let's go therefore to Daniel 7.
So, lasst uns deswegen Daniel 7 anfallen.
And let's read about the leopard
Und lass uns über diesen Leopard lesen.
in verse 6.
Das ist in Vers 6.
After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. So how many heads did the leopard have?
So, wie viele Köpfe hat diesen Leopard?
4.
4.
Right? Okay, so you have this number 4 attached to the leopard.
So, diese Nummer 4 ist dem Leopard zugebaut.
But when we go to Daniel 8,
Aber in Daniel 8,
we see now in verse 8,
in Vers 8,
therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and 4 it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. So what comes up here?
so was kommt hier herauf?
Also 4 horns, right?
4 Hörner.
And it's right here where the leopard in Daniel 7 comes up,
Es ist gerade hier in Daniel 7, wo der Leopard heraufkommt.
but also where now here this king of the south comes against the north, right?
Aber auch, wo König des Südens gegen der Norden
Yeah.
kommt.
Where basically this ram, because the ram is also Medo-Persia, right? Like, the he-goat is also Greece, like the leopard. The
Der
he-goat.
Bock, das Bock.
Ja.
Also wo der Bock hier auch ist wie der Leopard.
So it's the goat,
Das ist der Bock, Ziegenbock,
which is Greece.
der Griechenland ist.
And they both mark this point where you have this number 4 marked with Greece.
Und die beide markieren diesen Nummer 4 im Zusammenhang mit Griechenland.
Okay, so, and when the north gets judged, what follows?
Und wenn das Norden gerichtet wird, was folgt? Union and
Peace,
Peace.
right?
also Frieden.
And why peace?
Warum Frieden? Because the woman's been knocked off.
Yes, because the woman is now being punished and it's knocked off, right?
So, weil die Frau bestraft wird und runtergestoßen ist.
So here's the time of no woman.
So, hier gibt es eine Zeit von kein Frau.
Okay. So here comes the punishment, but we understand the woman comes back here, right?
Also hier kommt die Strafe, aber wir verstehen, dass die Frau kommt hier wieder rauf.
Okay. So, and this is also marked now by this number 4 here.
Und das ist auch markiert durch diese Nummer 4 hier.
And it says here the 4 horns, they are now toward the 4 winds of heaven.
Und es sagt hier, die 4 Hörner sind die 4 Himmelsrichtungen entgegengegangen.
Okay, so and what do the 4 winds of heaven illustrate in this illustration here?
Und diese Darstellung, was stellen die 4 Himmelsrichtungen dar?
Worldwide,
Also
right?
weltweit.
So it's now this, and we understand at the end of the First World War, there was this League of Nations.
Und wir verstehen, am Ende von diesem Ersten Weltkrieg gab es diese Völkerbund.
You can show this from the 4 cherubims, because they're at the 4 corners of the throne, which has these 4 horns on it.
Yes.
And the 4 horns represent north, south, east, and west, which is the whole world.
Du kannst das zeigen mit den 4 Cherubim, die sind die 4 Ecken des Thrones und das sind die 4 Hörner an die jeweiligen Ecken. Und diesen Hörnern stellen Norden, Süden, Osten, Westen dar die gesamte Welt.
Yes. Okay. And what is this waymark here in the middle right line?
Und in Miller-Geschichte, was ist diese Wegmarke hier?
August 11, 1840.
11.
Right?
August 1840.
Was there also an alliance?
Gab es auch ein Bündnis, die da stattfand?
Yes.
4 European.
Yes, also
Yes.
4 powers,
Also
right?
die 4 europäischen Mächte.
So, and it typifies,
It wasn't formed there, right? Correct? Was already there.
No, but
the
it-
No, it doesn't matter.
no,
It doesn't matter.
yes.
The 4 powers came together and
they basically put now their ultimatum in place right there. So it went in effect, their alliance.
Also die Allianz der 4 europäischen Mächte waren hier eingesetzt gegen den Ottoman.
the point is marked there in history.
No, I'm just, I think it's not clarified, because they have not come together there at that point. It was just the Turks who submitted to these 4 lines. So it's not that they have formed something that was not there before.
Yes. No, they came together because France was annoyed that they weren't part of it. They got a bit upset about it.
I mean, basically, on the 15th of July, they made this treaty in London.
Also am 15. Juli, die haben dieses Bündnis in London beschlossen.
But basically, this is where they came together, where they discussed how they would go about.
Da sind sie zusammengekommen und haben beredet, wie sie das quasi umsetzen wollten.
But this alliance went into effect on August 11th, 1840, with a decree that was then submitted to the Turks.
Aber diese Allianz ist in Kraft gegangen am 11. August mit dieses Beschluss gegen den Türken.
Yes. Okay, and what is this in our line?
Und was ist das in unserer Linie?
9/11.
11. September.
Was there also an alliance made?
Gab es auch da eine Allianz, die in Kraft gesetzt
If you're
worden
not
ist? Da?
with me,
Yes.
Yes,
you're against me.
It was
Wenn ihr nicht mit mir seid, seid ihr gegen mich, sagt Bush Junior.
Yes, was this coalition of the willing, it was called, right?
Es war dieses Bündnis der Willigen, so wie es genannt war.
Okay, so and this marks here now this when the four horns now come up here, it's a time of peace, and it's now this worldwide alliance.
Also wenn
Right?
diese 4 Hörner hier raufkommen, ist es eine Zeit des Friedens und auch ein weltweites Zusammenkommen oder Bündnis.
Because the goat now punished the ram. Okay,
Weil der Bock hat den Widder bestraft.
so the Democrats now punished the
Die
Republicans. Okay.
Demokraten haben die Republikaner bestraft.
Okay, so, but what comes up here?
Aber was kommt hier
According to
rauf?
verse 9.
Gemäß Vers 9.
In Daniel 8.
Yes. Daniel 8, verse 9.
Daniel 8, Vers 9.
Well, I mean, it's not really written in verse 9, but historically it had to come up in a time of peace before it fulfilled this.
Yes, I mean, it says here it comes up, right? Came forth a little horn which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land.
Yes.
Right?
Also diese
But
kleine
it does
Horn,
that better than anything.
Yes.
also diese kleine Horn, der heraufkommt und stoßt gegen den Norden, den Osten und den
Yeah,
Den
Teil.
Süden, den Osten und das Herrliche.
so,
geht gegen den Süden, den Osten und den herrlichen Land.
so that's when the little horn will war is right here.
Also wo der kleine Horn kriegt, ist es gerade hier,
Yes.
kämpft.
But it comes up here already peaceably.
Aber es kommt hier herauf in diese Zeit friedlich.
Okay, so just like the United States come up peaceably here. Right?
Genauso wie den USA hier heraufkommt, friedlich.
Okay, so, but when now the Democrats here punish the Republicans,
Also wir wissen, dass die Demokraten hier die Republikaner bestrafen.
so does it mean now that the Republicans are vanished?
Heißt das, dass die Republikaner sind weg vom Fenster?
No, right?
Nein.
So therefore there must be somehow what must take place between them.
So, es muss irgendwie irgendetwas stattfinden zwischen die beiden hier.
Just make an agreement.
Yes, they must make an agreement, okay?
Also sie vereinigen sich.
So
für
and
irgendwas.
this is something I want to look at now here in Daniel 11 with you guys.
Und das ist das, was ich jetzt in Daniel 11 anschauen möchte.
Okay, so let's turn to Daniel 11
So, lasst uns Daniel 11 anschauen. Marriage.
and let's read verse 5 and 6.
Und wir lesen die Versen 5 und 6.
Okay. So it says here, and the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion, his dominion shall be a great dominion. Okay, so here we have the king of the south, and who's this one when it says, and he shall be strong above him?
So, hier haben wir den König des Südens. Und von wem spricht es, wenn es sagt, er wird stark über ihm sein?
Who are the king of the north and king of the south when it was mentioned the first time here in this verse?
Wer ist König des Nordens und König des Südens?
Okay, maybe just to refresh your memory, let's go to verse. Yeah. Yes. Okay, let's just read verse 4. Okay.
Lass uns Vers 4 lesen.
It says, and when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven. So who's this speaking about here?
So, über wem spricht das hier?
Daniel
Greece.
8.
Alexander.
Yes, Daniel 8, right?
Das ist Daniel 8.
Alexander the Great, his kingdom is now divided into four.
So, Alexander der Große, sein Königreich ist jetzt in 4 zerteilt.
And the 4 parts of his kingdom was the 4 generals. Right?
Und die 4 Teile seines Königreichs war diesen 4 Generale.
So now in verse 5 it speaks about that there's a king of the south now, this was Ptolemy.
Und hier in Vers 5 spricht es über der König des Südens, das war der General Ptolemy.
And he ruled Egypt.
Und der hat Ägypten geherrscht.
And the one who was strong above him
Und derjenige, der stark über ihm war,
was Seleucus.
war Seleucus.
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 Yes. And he who ruled over Babylon, and he basically became the king of the north.
Und der war derjenige, der über dem Gebiet von Babylon geherrscht hat, König des Nordens.
Okay. So now in verse 6.
So jetzt in Vers 6.
And in the end of days they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So what do they do now here?
So was tun sie hier?
They make agreement,
Sie
right?
machen ein Bündnis.
So basically the Republicans and the Democrats, now they join together to make an agreement.
So die
Okay.
Republikaner und Demokraten kommen zusammen, um einen Zusammenschluss zu finden.
And according to this verse, how should this agreement come to pass?
Und gemäß diesem Vers, wie soll das zustande kommen?
Because of the daughter.
Yes, a daughter of whom?
Der Tochter von wem?
From the south, right?
Der Tochter des Südens.
So the south sends his daughter to the north, right?
Den Süden sendet seine Tochter zum Norden hin.
Okay, now let's continue reading.
Lass uns lesen weiter.
But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Okay, so is it an agreement that is lasting?
So, ist es ein Bündnis, der dauert?
No.
No, right?
Nein.
Okay, so let's read now what Uriah Smith wrote about this.
So, wir lesen jetzt das, was Uriah Smith darüber geschrieben hat.
Okay, it's in the live stream group,
Das finden wir in der Livestream-Gruppe.
Daniel and Revelation. Okay, I think Christian, it's your turn to read if I remember correctly. You can just read the first paragraph after the verse, beginning with there were frequent wars.
There were frequent wars between the kings of Egypt and Syria. Especially was this the case with Ptolemy Philadelphus, the second king of Egypt, and Antiochus Theos, third king of Syria. They at length agreed to make peace upon condition that Antiochus Theos should put away his former wife, Laodice, and her 2 sons, and should marry Berenice, the daughter of Ptolemy Philadelphus. Ptolemy accordingly brought his daughter to Antiochus, bestowing with her an immense dowry.
Okay, thank you. So they wanted to do what with
So,
each other?
die wollten was miteinander tun?
Does it say
Was sagt es?
in the second sentence?
Zweiten Satz.
They at length agreed to make peace.
Yes.
Sie beschlossen, Frieden zu machen.
What condition?
Auf, basierend worauf?
Yes, marriage, but what condition?
Diese Hochzeit, aber welche Bedingung?
Die Söhne wegschicken von der früheren Frau.
Yes, he had to put away Laodice, right?
Also er musste seine eigenen Frau wegtun, also Laodice.
So who's the woman of the Republican horn?
Und wer ist die Frau der republikanisches Horn?
Because, yes, it's Jezebel, right?
Das ist Isabel, ist der Papsttum.
Because Ahab is the king of 10, right?
Ahab ist der König von 10.
And he's married to Jezebel.
Und er ist mit Isabel verheiratet.
And so Laodice is the woman married to the Republicans.
So,
Okay.
Laodice ist diese Frau, die den Republikanern verheiratet ist.
And Berenice comes from the south.
Und Berenice, sie ist von den Süden.
So therefore Laodice, she's the papacy.
So, Laodice ist den Papst.
And when do the Republicans rule here?
Und wann herrscht die Republikaner hier?
In this time, right?
Diese Zeit hier.
So therefore Laodice is here, this wife of Antiochus, right?
So, diese Frau Laodice von Antiochos ist hier.
But when they now make an agreement to have peace,
Aber wenn sie ein Friedensbündnis beschließen,
what happens with Laodice?
was geschieht mit Laodice? Laodice,
Yes, she's put away,
sie
right?
wird weggetan.
So, and when the woman, the papacy is put away, what happens?
Und wenn
Or
die
what's the
Frau,
result?
die Papsttum weggetan wird, was geschieht?
Yes, peace, right?
Frieden kommt.
Okay, so here's Laodice and here's Berenice. Right?
So, da ist Laodice und hier ist Berenice.
Okay, and therefore, because Laodice is now put away in this time, there's peace.
So,
Okay,
weil Laodice in diese Zeit weggetan ist, ist es Frieden.
okay. But what do we understand?
Aber was verstehen wir?
What happens with Laodice?
Was geschieht mit Laodice?
Will she remain in the obscurity for all time?
So wird sie
No.
in der Hintergrund für alle Zeit bleiben.
We understand Laodice comes back here.
Wir
Okay,
verstehen, dass Laodice hier zurückkommt.
okay, so let's look at this story.
So, lass uns diese Geschichte anschauen.
Let's read the next paragraph.
Nächster Absatz.
Louis, you want to read the next one?
But she shall not retain the power of the arm, that is here interested in power with Antiochus. And so it proved for some time shortly after in a fit of love. Antiochus brought back his former wife. Laodice and her children took her again. Then says the prophecy, neither shall he Antiochus stand nor his arm or seed. Laodice being restored to favor and power, feared lest in the
Fickleness.
fickleness of his temper, Antiochus should again disgrace her and recall
Berenice.
Berenice, and conceiving that nothing short of his death would be an effectual safeguard against such a
Contingency.
contingency. She caused him to be
Poisoned.
poisoned shortly after. Neither did his seed by Berenice succeed him in the kingdom, for Laodice so managed affairs as to secure the throne for her eldest son, Seleucus Callicus.
Yes. Okay, so here we can see what happens with Laodice.
Was geschieht mit Laodice?
She's again restored, right?
Sie ist wieder eingesetzt.
Okay, and now she kills basically Antiochus. Right?
Sie tötet Antiochos.
And what happens also? Let's go to the next paragraph.
Was geschieht auch noch? Nächster Absatz.
David, you want to read this? You can? Okay. I don't know. Nenad, you feel capable or shall we skip you?
Wie beginnt der nächste?
But she, Berenice.
But she, Berenice, shall be given up. Laodice, not content with poisoning her husband, Antiochus, caused Berenice to be murdered. And they that brought here her Egyptian woman and attendants in endeavoring to defend, here were many of them slain with her. And that begot her virgin, whom she brought forth. That is her son, who was murdered at the same time by order of Laodice. And that stranged her in these times. Her husband Antiochus, as Jerome supposes, or those who took her part of defended her. But such wickedness could not long remain unpunished, as the prophecy predicts and history proves.
Yes. Okay. So what can we see here?
So, was können wir hier sehen?
what did Laodice do?
Was hat Laodice getan?
Yes, she killed everybody. Right?
Also, sie tötet allen.
Okay. So now she's back on stage and there's no more peace, right?
So, jetzt ist sie wieder auf die Bühne und es gibt keinen Frieden mehr.
Because now she murdered everybody.
Weil jetzt hat sie allen umgebracht.
And what is the consequence?
Und was ist der Resultat?
Is the agreement between the North and the South still present?
So, ist der Bündnis zwischen Nord und Süd noch intakt?
No, right? It's
Nein.
now broken and therefore again there's war.
Es ist
Okay?
wieder gebrochen und deswegen gibt es wieder Krieg.
And that's why in verse 7, when we go to Daniel 11 verse 7,
Und deswegen im Vers 7, Daniel 11, Vers 7,
it says the following.
sagt Folgendes.
Let's read verse 7. Yeah, let's just read verse 7.
Vers 7.
Marius, you want to read verse 7 for us, please?
It says, but out of a branch of a root shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail.
Yes. Okay, so what is now the result?
So, was ist der Resultat?
The South retaliates.
Yes, the South retaliates.
Die
Okay.
Süden kommt zurück.
Okay, and unfortunately, no, my laptop is again connected. So I just post now what Uriah Smith writes about this.
Ich poste das, was Uriah Smith darüber schreibt.
And let's just read down to verse 8 and 9 also.
So, lasst uns bis die Verse 8 und 9 auch lesen. In Daniel 11.
Shall also carry captives into Egypt their guards with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold. He shall continue more years than the king of the north. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land.
Yes. Okay, so who wins this battle here?
So, wer gewinnt diesen Kampf?
South.
Yes, the South. Right?
Südmacht.
So we'll just post this now. Let's read what happened here.
So, lasst uns lesen, was hier geschah.
Margaret, do you want to read the first paragraph? I mean, when it begins, this branch out of the same root. English. You have it?
But out of the branch.
No, one later, because that's the verse we already read. This branch out.
This branch out of the same root with Berenice was her brother, Ptolemy, or
Euergetes.
Euergetes. He had no sooner succeeded his father, Ptolemy Euergetes, in the kingdom of Egypt, than burning the revenge to death of his sister Berenice, he raised an immense army and invaded the territory of the king of the north, that is of Seleucus Callinus, who with his mother Laodice reigned in Syria, and he prevailed against them even to the conquering of Syria, Cilicia, the upper parts beyond the Euphrates, and almost all Asia. But hearing that a sedition was raised in Egypt, requiring his return home, he plundered the kingdom of Seleucus, took 40,000 talents of silver and precious vessels, and 2,500 images of the gods. Among these were the images which Cambyses had formerly taken from Egypt and carried into Persia. The Egyptians, being wholly given to the idolatry, bestowed upon Ptolemy the title of Euergetes, or the benefactor, as a compliment for his having thus, after many years, restored their captive gods.
Okay, thank you. So here we can see basically the south now comes against the north and defeats the north, right?
So, hier können wir sehen, der Süden kommt gegen Norden und gewinnt.
But in the next paragraph, and I will just quickly read the portion I want to read.
Aber im nächsten Absatz
Says, this according to Bishop Newton is Jerome's account extracted from ancient historians, but there are authors still extant that he says who confirm several of the same particulars. Appian informs us that Laodice, having killed Antiochus, and after him both Berenice and her children, Ptolemy, the son of Philadelphus, to revenge those murderers, invaded Syria, slew Laodice, and proceeded as far as Babylon. So what happened with Laodice?
So was geschah mit Laodice?
Yes. So the south, king of the south now kills Laodice. Right?
Der König des Südens tötet Laodice.
Okay. So next sentence. From Polybius we learn that Ptolemy, surnamed Euergetes, being greatly incensed at the cruel treatment of his sister Berenice, marched with an army into Syria and took the city of Seleucia, which was kept for some years afterward by garrisons of the kings of Egypt. Thus did he enter into the fortress of the king of the north. Okay, so here we see that when the king of the south now retaliates,
So hier können wir sehen, wenn der König des Südens zurückschlägt,
what does he do with Laodice?
was tut er mit Laodice?
Kills her, right?
Er tötet sie.
So where does the king of the south kill Jezebel or Laodice?
So wo tötet König des Südens Isabel oder hier Laodice?
At the end, right?
Ende.
Okay, so here Laodice is slain. Right?
Also hier Laodice wird hingerichtet.
Laodice. L-A-O.
Au, Laodice.
Laodice.
Yes.
I also spelled it wrong.
I never noticed that one.
You also. One time again.
At least I was consistent, right? Laodice.
One time again, yes.
Where?
At your last hand. Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so now this woman is judged. Okay.
So jetzt, diese Frau ist gerichtet,
But what can we expect what will happen again?
aber was können wir erwarten, was wieder geschehen wird? Deadly wound will be healed.
The demon will be healed.
Also
Okay.
tödliche Wunde wird geheilt.
So now let's go to verse 10.
So jetzt Vers
Then
10
verse 10.
in Daniel 11.
It says, but his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. Okay, so it speaks now about one of the sons of Antiochus, of the king of the north, is now stirred up and goes again against the king of the south, right?
Einer der Söhne von Antiochus ist aufgewühlt und der geht wieder gegen den Süden los.
Okay, and it's just always
Back and forward.
back and forth. Okay?
Es ist immer so ein Hin und Her.
So, and I want to mention now two more points because we are already not over time, but we already we can come to a close. But I want to mention two last points. Okay,
Aber zwei weitere Punkte
Let's
möchte
go.
ich erwähnen.
let's go to also to verse 27.
Lass uns jetzt zu Vers 27 gehen.
Or let's read verse 25 and then verse 27.
So Vers 25, dann Vers 27.
It says, and he shall be stirred up.
He shall
Oh, sorry, it's next. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast his devices against him. So what is verse 25 speaking about?
So worüber spricht Vers 25?
Who was fighting against whom?
Wer kämpfte gegen wen?
Northeast.
North.
North against south, right?
Nord gegen Süden.
And in verse 24 it speaks about Rome, right? It says here, he shall enter peaceably. This is how Rome came up peaceably. Right?
So Vers 24 spricht es über Rom, wie es friedevoll aufkam.
And at the end of the verse it says, even for a time.
Und am
Right?
Ende des Verses es sagt sogar für eine Zeit.
This 1 year, this one prophetic year, this 360 years. Right?
Diese eine prophetische Jahr, diese 360 Jahre.
And from when to when does this time last?
Und von wann bis wann reicht diese Zeit an?
This year of pagan Rome.
Ein Jahr von heidnischen Rom.
39 BC.
Yes. Right? 31 BC
So 31 vor Christus
until
bis
330.
330 nach Christus.
So, and what happened 31 BC?
Und was geschah 31 nach Christus?
Battle of
30 nach Christus?
Yes, Battle of Actium. Right?
Das war der Kampf um Actium.
So that's Actium. And what happened 330
Und
AD?
was geschah 330 nach Christus?
the separation when he goes to Constantinople.
Yes, right. He changes the seat from Rome to Constantinople.
Also wechselt den Hauptsitz von Rom bis nach Konstantinopel.
Rome to Constantinople. Okay. And who fought here in this Battle of Actium?
Und wer kämpfte in diesem Kampf um Actium?
Cleopatra
Mark Antony. Okay.
against
Against.
Also
Caesar.
Kleopatra,
Yes.
Mark Antony zusammen gegen Caesar Augustus.
Okay. And who was Mark Antony?
Und wer war Mark Antony?
He was also a joint leader with Augustus in some sense.
Yes.
Also er war Mitführer mit Caesar Augustus in gewissem Maß.
Yeah, he was a Roman.
Er war ein Römer,
But he now joined with Egypt and therefore he became the king of the south.
aber er hat sich Ägypten angeschlossen und deswegen war ein Teil des Königs des Südens.
And Mark Antony represented the north. Right?
Und Mark Antony stellte den Norden dar.
And who won this battle?
Und wer hat diesen Kampf gewonnen? Caesar Augustus.
Yes, the north, right?
Also den Norden, Caesar Augustus.
Okay, and this is what is written here in verse 25, what we
Und das
read.
ist das, was hier in Vers 25 ist, was wir gelesen haben.
Yeah, this is now the battle of Actium,
Das ist der Kampf um Actium.
where he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south. That's Caesar Augustus coming against Mark Antony.
Also
Okay.
der hier am Anfang von Vers 25 ist Caesar Augustus, der da mit seiner Macht gegen Mark Antony und Kleopatra kommt.
And it
Also gegen
says,
Ägypten.
and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. This is now Mark Antony together with Cleopatra fighting back against Caesar Augustus.
Also König des Südens mit einer Riesenarmee, der zurückkämpft. Das ist Ägypten, also Kleopatra mit Mark Antony zusammen.
But he, the king of the south, shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Okay.
Der König des Südens besteht nicht.
Okay, and in verse 27
In Vers 27,
it says, and both these kings, so the south and the north, right,
beide von diesen Königen, also sowohl das Süden als auch das Norden,
was Mark Antony and Caesar Augustus.
also Mark Antony und Caesar Augustus,
Both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Okay, what do we see? What did they also try first?
also was haben sie versucht zuerst? Was sehen wir?
Make an agreement.
Yes, they tried to make an agreement, right?
Sie versucht da einen Zusammenschluss zu finden.
They spoke peaceably to each other and
Sie haben Frieden gesprochen, aber nichts gemeint.
Uriah Smith writes, they flattered each other and they said, oh, you're such a nice guy and all this.
Uriah Smith schreibt, dass sie einander gegenseitig schmeicheln.
Yeah, but in reality they hated each other and they just waited for an opportunity to destroy each other.
Aber
Okay.
in Wirklichkeit, die haben einander abgrundtief gehasst und die warteten nur darauf, eine Gelegenheit gegenseitig abzuschlachten.
Okay, so that's basically this time of peace where they were at one table. Okay,
Das ist im Grunde diese Zeit des Friedens, wo sie an einem Tisch waren.
but then there came up again this time of war where they fought against each other.
Und dann
Okay.
kam diese Zeit des Kriegs wieder auf, wo sie gegenseitig kämpften.
Okay. So my point is
Und mein Punkt ist dies,
that we might have misapplied Daniel 11 verse 40. Okay.
Also wir können vielleicht Daniel 11, Vers 40 falsch interpretiert.
But that's just a suggestion, we have to test this. Okay, let's
Aber
go
das
to
ist
Daniel
nur-
11 verse 40.
Ein Vorschlag, das müssen wir natürlich testen.
Let's read verse 40.
So, lasst uns Vers 40 lesen.
Because we always saw the king of the south comes, right,
Denn wir haben immer gesehen, König des Südens kommt,
at the end punishes the north,
am Ende bestraft den Norden,
then there's a time of peace,
dann gibt es Zeit des Friedens,
but Laodice comes always back.
aber
Okay.
Laodice kommt immer zurück.
And she retaliates.
Und
Right?
sie
Sie macht einen Racheschlag.
also
Okay.
sie macht einen Racheschlag,
Oder schlägt zurück.
schlägt
Okay.
zurück.
So in Laodice she killed basically everybody.
Und Laodice, sie hat alle umgebracht.
But then the south came again and killed her.
Aber dann
Okay.
die Süden ist wieder aufgekommen und hat sie umgebracht.
But then again the north came up and
Aber dann kam
Back and
Norden
forth.
wieder auf.
okay, so in Daniel 11 verse 40 it says,
Daniel 11, Vers 40 sagt es,
and at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. So, yeah, the time of the end is 1798, right?
Zeit des Endes 1798.
So, in this sense, right, this is when the king of the south now comes and punishes the north. Okay.
In diesem Sinne ist es hier, wo König des Süden kommt und den Norden bestraft.
But where does the north come and retaliates
Aber
against
wo
the
kommt
south?
der Norden und mit dem Gegenschlag?
Yes, at the Sunday law,
Sonntagsgesetz,
Which is 1989.
which is 1989.
was 1989 ist.
So before that, we always applied Daniel 11 verse 40 at the beginning, where the south now comes against the north,
So
right?
davor haben wir Daniel 11,40 immer am Anfang, wo der Süden gegen den Norden aufkommt,
Based upon 1848, where the south pushed against the north, right?
basierend auf 1848, wo der Süden gegen den Norden kam.
But there might be the chance now that Daniel 11 verse 40 actually speaks about the end, where the south comes against the north. Okay.
Aber es kann jetzt heißen, dass Daniel 11,40 spricht über das Ende, wo der Süden gegen den
But
Norden kommt.
we've sort of taught that anyway,
Wir haben das in gewissen Maßen sowieso gelehrt.
because the point is that the time of the end in Daniel 11 verse, or Daniel 12,
Die Zeit des Endes in Daniel 12
is both at the beginning and the end.
ist sowohl am Anfang als das Ende.
So the point is that when we came to Daniel 11:40, it was me made this argument.
So, wenn wir zu Daniel 11,40 gekommen sind, ich habe ein Argument gemacht,
Can't be making a deadly wound at the beginning,
es
right?
kann ein tödliches Wunde nicht am Anfang geben.
And yet you had 1848 clearly marking this south power rising against the north.
Obwohl 1848 markiert klar und deutlich der Süden, die gegen den Norden aufkommt.
And you've also got the US Civil War.
Und es gibt auch den US-Bürgerkrieg.
And she marks both those things together right at that
Sie
point.
markiert beide zusammen an diesem
Yes.
Punkt.
So you've got two witnesses there that the south comes against the north.
Es gibt zwei Zeugen, dass das Süden gegen das Norden hier aufkommt.
So I thought some about this just recently, and I believe that this illustration of the south there, followed by the north there, is correct.
Und ich glaube, dass diese Darstellung von den Süden, der hier gegen den Norden kommt,
up, Scott, up.
diese Darstellung von den Süden, die gegen den Norden hier aufkommt und dann hier wieder das
End of the Sunday law, beginning of the Sunday law.
Ende des Sonntagsgesetzes, Beginn des Sonntagsgesetzes ist korrekt.
Okay, but when you understand this, that the time of the end is also at the beginning, right?
Du
This is where
verstehst, dass der Zeit des Endes ist auch am Anfang.
this is where you can understand that it's also that, because this cancels out this thing about this. No, maybe it's another time. But I'm pretty sure you can show this also at the beginning. This would mark 1848 and the U.S. Civil War there also.
Yeah, if you can show this, then are you willing to show?
Why did you direct me up? Everything's written here.
No, it's not. It's not there.
Here's where
We spoke about here, right? It's here at 1798.
Here's where Laodice
Yeah,
is.
that's just the principle.
That's just a parallel. The Sunday law ends there. That's what he's pointing to.
Yes.
Okay.
So 1798, the time at the end, the south pushes against the north. Okay. It is
Ja,
final.
okay.
Okay.
1798, Zeit des Endes, Süden kommt gegen das Norden.
1798.
1798, Süden kommt gegen den Norden.
And here, the north again retaliates against the south,
Und hier das Norden kommt wieder gegen den Süden.
Which is the time of the end.
which is time of the end 1989.
Das ist die Zeit des Endes 1989 jetzt.
Okay. And Brother Mark just made the point that he means that he might be able to prove that this is also, this verse 40, can you also show at the beginning that the south pushes against the north at the
Und
beginning?
der Punkt, den Bruder Mark macht, ist, dass Daniel 11, Vers 40 kann auch am Anfang gezeigt werden.
Based upon 1848.
Basierend auf 1848 und der US-Bürgerkrieg.
And based upon the fact that the time of the end is both at the beginning and the end.
Und basierend darauf, dass Zeit des Endes sowohl am Anfang als auch am Ende ist.
But it's a different meaning to it, right?
Yes,
Because at the end it's the deadly wound, in the beginning it's just this
Yes.
uprising. Okay.
Yes.
Aber es hat eine verschiedene Bedeutung, denn am Ende ist es der tödliche Wunder und am Anfang ist es nur diese Aufruhr.
So, but if it's true,
Aber wenn das wahr wäre,
it would mean that the North also retaliates at the end.
es hieße aber auch, dass der Norden auch am Ende gegenschlägt.
And that would help us to see something that we're missing.
Und das wird uns helfen, irgendetwas zu sehen, gerade jetzt, was wir außer Acht lassen.
Because God is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. So
Weil
this
Gott ist
might
der
be
Alpha und Omega, das Anfang und Ende.
something-
Because at the end of the Civil War, who won the Civil War?
Und am Ende von dem Bürgerkrieg, wer hat gewonnen?
No.
The North,
Der
right?
Norden.
So, therefore, that's this dilemma we have. That some illustrations show that the South wins here, and some illustrations show that the North wins here. Okay.
Einige Darstellungen zeigen, dass den Süden hier gewinnt, aber anderen den Norden.
So we still try to marry this up, how we can bring this all together.
So, wir versuchen immer noch herauszuarbeiten, wie wir das alles zusammenbringen können
Okay.
in Einheit.
And just one final thought, because we don't have time to look into this now deeply, I will just mention it. Okay.
Ein weiterer Gedanke, und wir haben jetzt nicht die Zeit, da in die Tiefe zu gehen, also ich werde es nur erwähnen.
And maybe in the next class we can also read that. Okay. There's another illustration of the South and the North power,
Es gibt
Okay.
eine andere Darstellung von Süden und Nordmächten.
which is Chose Rose and Heraclius.
Heracles.
Yes,
Das
Heraclius.
ist Chosroth und Herakles.
And Chose Rose was the king of Persia, right?
Chosroth, der war König von Persien.
And Heraclius was the king of Rome.
Und Herakleus, der war König von Rom.
So Rome is the north and Chose Rose was the south, right?
Und Rom war der Norden und Chosroth der Süden.
And who was in the ascendancy at the beginning?
Und wer war am Anfang heraufkommend?
Yes, the south,
Im
Chose Rose.
Süden.
Okay.
Chosroth.
And what did Heraclius do in order to prepare for war?
Und was hat Herakles getan, um den Krieg
Made
vorzubereiten?
an agreement.
Yes, he made an agreement,
Er
right?
hat ein Bündnis mit
So
sie
there was
geschlossen.
like a time of peace,
So,
okay.
es gab zwar eine Art Zeit des Friedens,
but in this time of peace, the north prepared for war.
aber
okay.
in dieser Zeit des Friedens, den Norden hat auf den Krieg vorbereitet.
And what does the woman do in this time here, in the time of peace?
Was tut die Frau hier zur Zeit des Friedens?
Yes, she sings,
Sie
right?
singt.
And tries to find the supporters in order to again make war.
Und sie
Okay.
versucht, Unterstützer zu finden, sodass sie wieder Krieg führen kann.
Okay. So, and therefore Heraclius, he basically made preparation for war here,
Deswegen, dieser Herakleus hat hier Vorbereitung auf den Krieg gemacht.
and then he fought and he retaliated against the south. Okay.
Er hat gekämpft und ist gegen den Süden wieder
Okay.
zurückgeschlagen.
And eventually he conquered the south, right?
Und letztendlich hat er den Süden überwunden.
But what other power then came on the stage?
Aber welche weitere Macht kam denn auf die Bühne?
Yes, Muhammad, right?
So Mohammed.
So, therefore, this story not only shows us the battle between the king of the north and the south,
So, diese Geschichte zeigt uns nicht nur den Kampf gegen Süden und Norden,
Islam taking advantage of
Yes.
that battle.
amen. Okay,
sondern es ist Islam, der
Vorteil.
der nutzt seinen Vorteil aus diesem Kampf heraus.
And we understand, right, that at midnight the south will rise against the north, and there will be this fight between these two powers,
Wir
right?
verstehen am Mitternacht, die Süden kommt gegen Norden und es gibt den Kampf zwischen diese zwei Mächten.
But then who will strike the cities?
Aber dann, wer wird die Städte zuschlagen?
Mohammed, right?
Islam, Mohammed.
So, and it's just the same thing, okay?
Es ist dasselbe wieder.
So, therefore, the radical Muslims they just take advantage that now the attention is diverted to all these things, and they know in secret they just wait for their moment, and they will strike. Okay?
Diese radikale Islamisten, die sehen einen Vorteil, die sich erschafft durch den Norden und Süden gegeneinander und die warten nur ab auf ihren Moment.
Yes. Okay, so all these stories, we have to again go through them step by step. We looked at them, I don't know, 2 years ago quite frequently.
So, all diese Geschichten mussten wir neu gucken, Schritt für Schritt. Also wir haben sie seit so vielleicht vor 2 Jahren angeschaut.
But back then we didn't have this little time of peace and not this same structure.
Aber damals hatten wir diese kleine Zeit des Friedens und diese selbe Struktur nicht gehabt.
So now we can maybe understand it much better.
So,
Okay.
jetzt können wir das sicherlich noch viel besser verstehen.
Especially now this with Laodice and Berenice, we can now understand much better than before.
Besonders in dieser Geschichte zwischen Laodice und Berenice, wir können das viel besser jetzt verstehen.
Okay.
You know, in the Quran, it's actually written, Muhammad actually writes in the Quran, right, to wait for your opportunity. So it's written there about the third jihad and everything. It's like, peace, be peace, be at peace, be at peace, but then.
Yes.
So, also es ist genauso in den Koran geschrieben, so genau wie Bruder Lorenz das gesagt hat, dass sie abwarten auf ihre Gelegenheit. So.
Ellen White is saying it also about the Catholics. They are also waiting
Yes, yes.
until the time is coming.
Also Ellen White sagt das auch über die Katholiken, dass sie warten auf ihre Gelegenheit auszunutzen.
Okay, so it will all play out before our very eyes
Das
very
wird
short.
alles vor unseren Augen ausspielen, in Kürze.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, then, amen. Let's
Amen.
close.
So,
Let's
lasst
close with
uns
our prayer.
unsere Gebetsrunde schließen.